Welcome back. President Trump's latest budget plan includes the possibility of eliminating the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Tom, in a world that leans more and more heavily on internet access every day, is public television and radio a feasible thing to part with? What do we do with Big Bird?
I think we keep Big Bird. A lot of people like Big Bird.
Big Bird already left the building, though, by the way.
Statistics, 60%, a good 60% of, or even more than that, I believe, of children ages 2 to 8, 68% in some of the surveys watch or learn from PBS. The children alone. That's an amazing statistic. That's almost every 7 out of 10. So I think it's pretty darn good investment on the money, and they still use it in so many different ways in schools. It's not just internet stuff, but they also, and they also give their stuff out in other forms. So I think it's a tremendous thing. And I don't know that they're ever going to be able to defund that. We'll see what happens. Certainly here in Maryland, they voted to make up the difference if they need to save our own Maryland Public TV.
Danielle, I know that you're really into this topic. Why do you think they want to cut something that's beneficial? Because it's beneficial, or just to make a statement of some kind?
I have to say that I think it's to make a statement, and this is really hard for me to admit, but, and I, as you said, I am a huge fan of public radio, public TV. It's what I listen to and watch every single day, rather than even opening the newspaper. That's where I go first. But here's why I say what I do, is that I think with Donald Trump's move on this, is that it's no surprise to anyone that public radio consistently, or public TV, leans towards liberal. So that's why I do think that it is a bit of a statement, and I'm disappointed by it. And I read today as well that 70% of Trump voters actually disapproved of this action even before he went into office. So it's important to a lot of
folks. How Breitbart's
folks.
People, and the Bannon people had some kind of an editorial on this in claiming that the reason they're cutting it is just to keep their conservative promise to cut spending, and number two, because of the poor content on on the public broadcasting thing.
And I'm going to have to take a real issue. Now, of course, I would not give a penny to anything that Breitbart publishes, because I think they're the epitome of fake news. But look, if you look at programs like Nova, and even forget, first of all, on the scientific side, public broadcasting has wonderful programs. If you look at the arts, NPR and PBS have wonderful programs.
Some of the best on
even
TV.
on a news side. I know that you said that they have a somewhat liberal lean, but I think they make a very hard effort to be very consistent, and they're not beholden, because they're publicly funded and they're funded through donations, they're not beholden to ratings.
No.
So they don't care about a particular demographic that they're trying to serve. Now, forgetting all those things, what about the children's programs? What about the things, Sesame Street, something that most of us have grown up on? And not to mention some of the shows that were before that, Electric Company and some of the other stuff, that were formative to a lot of us. And they blended entertainment with education a lot better than some of the crap that's being fed to kids nowadays. And you're a parent as well as I am. I mean, you're exposed to some of the stuff that's on commercial TV.
Sure.
To me, it's disgraceful. And look, yes, it's not owned by billionaires. Nobody who is on the board of PBS is a buddy with Donald Trump or plays golf with him. Yeah. But it serves the vast majority of people. And I think it's a good point that you brought up, which is that 70% of Trump's own voters disagree with it, because guess what? They're not billionaires either.
Well, let me ask you a question here now. As we go forward with this, I hear the word liberal. Why is it that there's something that deals with education, public broadcasting, why is it that educational things are liberal?
Well, and
why is the word liberal demonized?
I don't know. So that there's two sides of it, right? So there is the educational piece, and not only for viewers, but also for teachers in the school systems as educational tools. But I think it's the news side of it that goes towards the liberal.
Well, is it really liberal?
Of things.
Well, some of it is more middle
and
of the road.
Against conservatives.
If you look over history, I mean, it's gone so far to the right that anything that isn't, I mean, they would drum Ronald Reagan out of the party at this point.
Look how liberal you are.
I would love to pick
You
up.
give of your time you liberally give of your time
So,
all the time.
If I may bring
That's
up a
a
point.
different definition of liberal, I think.
Well, it's
If I may bring
But-
up a point, and I think this
Yeah.
is something that gets tossed around. So the word liberal tends to be much more insulting to a certain group of people than the word conservative. Now, let's think about this in a different term. So we have, in terms, if you're talking about conservatism, then the flip side of the coin is progressive, being a progressive, so somebody who's moving forward. The Republican Party used to be the progressive party. The Democrats were the conservatives.
Yes.
One of the biggest progressives in the history of this country was Teddy Roosevelt. Founded a national park system, founded all the labor
did
laws.
all the stuff they're going to cut,
Right.
basically.
So I think there's a certain dichotomy there, and I think those terms ultimately, Ron, get used to incite the bases, which really have no clue what those terms really mean.
Well, let me just real quick take this back to the funding piece of it, right? Because they're saying that only 2%, I think, of the corporate broadcasting is actually funded by the government. So they're only losing 2% of their funding. The rest of it is through membership programs and personal fundraising. So I'm playing devil's advocate here, by the way. That's the other side of the coin.
Yeah,
is
But may
are
I
they
say
really
something?
losing
So-
that much money?
WAMU in Washington is going to be around because they have a large enough supporting base that they're not going to lose. What is going to lose are the small public broadcasting
Rural.
stations in rural areas that oftentimes are
They're
the
more
only
like Washington
providers
County.
of the only providers of any real
No, that's-
unbiased news. You know, you go to certain areas of this country, and I hate to say this, and I don't mean to demonize Fox, but I will demonize Fox every bit as much as I demonize MSNBC because they both represent opposite sides of the spectrum. They're providing a very, very nuanced version of the news. And if you watch the two news stations side by side, you're not even realizing they're talking about the same thing because they're so diametrically opposed. So you may think that PBS or the public broadcasting stations lean one way or another, but I think in a lot of areas, they're the only ones providing sort of a middle-of-the-road rational view that's somewhat, whether it leans one way or the other, unbiased.
Yeah, it's just so ironical that where Donald Trump got a lot of his votes, that's the area that's going to be hurt the most by most of these proposed budget
They're also the
cuts.
ones who are going to lose out when Obamacare gets tossed out.
Well, that's
the
what I'm
window.
saying. They're going to be losing all kinds of stuff. They don't realize it. And this is one of them. You know, big bird for their kids. You know, if you put it that way, it may be a small amount, but sometimes seed money, matching funds are important in order. You know, it's like the people who put money in the tip jar.
Well, and if,
You know,
look,
because-
if you're a
get
coal
more
miner out of work in Appalachia, you don't
Yeah.
have cable. So
No,
your
you don't
choices
have
are
cable.
somewhat limited to whatever you get on UHF or VHF.
Exactly.
Why do you think then the state of Maryland has already put money in their budget to deal with it if it's finally cut?
Because we value it here, I think. It's as simple as that.
Well,
Why
and
wouldn't
they?
they?
Also still want to continue to
Yeah.
air Session
And
that
it's
is
jobs
on public
for here.
TV
Again, it
C-SPAN.
is jobs.
and jobs.
Yes.
It's jobs.
And by the way, I tried to get this in at the top of the segment, but I said Big Bird has left the building. He literally has. He has gone. Him and all of his friends at Sesame Street have gone to HBO. They're
Which
not on
is a
public
travesty,
TV anymore.
yeah,
Complete
unfortunately.
travesty.
Yeah.
And that's that could be the wave of the future.
Yeah, but still, I think, public broadcasting has developed this. They'll develop new things. This has been their track record, and why won't they still do
My
it?
friend, you've had the last word. Next up on the flip side, our panel weighs in on paid sick leave in Maryland. Stay tuned.